episode of the Freedom Series live stream session. I'm blessed and super honored to have Kylie Ryan here, who's a performance coach, NLP Coach Trainer, and singer who supports the next wave of coaches, change makers, entrepreneurs, and artists to reveal their true voice and embody their soul's mission. She specializes in working with passionate professionals who empower human transformation and create positive change, both locally and globally. After her own personal health and life transformation 15 years ago, Kylie became a passionate student of human behavioral change and sustainable transformation. Over the years, she's helped thousands of clients to transform their bodies, learn to love themselves, and create lives that they love, freedom and wealth by shredding the past and embodying their soul's purpose. Kylie freaking Ryan, welcome to the show.
Woohoo! Barry, I'm so pleased to be here. I'm so honored to be a part of your amazing Freedom Series. This is so cool.
I'm so grateful to have you here. And equally too, I'm so grateful to have each and every one of you tune in from wherever you are around the world, whether you're live with us right now or whether you're live with us in the future, which we call a replay. I'd love to make
welcome everyone. Welcome.
I would love to make this as interactive as possible. So please, throughout this episode, put all your comments, put all your questions below. Rafi from my team will feed them through to us here so we get them answered. Hit the like button. Let us know that you're tuning in. And I would really encourage you to start a watch party and tag some people in who need a transformational shift, because I'm sure today's episode is going to be hot. Kylie, you do some pretty magical things with coaches and entrepreneurs and clients. And I kind of like to refer to you like the Wendy Russell kick-ass Australian entrepreneurs. And those of you who haven't seen Billions, definitely watch it. But honestly though, like you are kind of the behind the scenes of some pretty phenomenal entrepreneurs, helping them to kind of shift their mind, shift their blockages and shop to become the best version of them. Like, I guess maybe for entrepreneurs or business owners watching this who haven't had much experience with mindset work or change work, let's kind of start there.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. Where do you want to start with mindset?
I guess like how does our inner game, like we speak a lot of the game changes, the inner game and outer game. Inner game is like, you know, our heart, our mind, like everything happens inside of us, and the outer game is outside of us, strategy, tactics, environmental changes, things like that.
Yeah.
How does our mind or how does our inner game keep us stuck or affect us from living a life of freedom, living a life that we love?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like trying to, at least like mindset in itself is a super vague term. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily like really get what it actually means. And so, you know, if I'm just to kind of start with a definition that I use and that kind of invites us to go deeper. So for me, mindset is the lens that we view the world through that shapes the world that we live in. It shapes the world that we live in. And it's like our mindset is kind of like looking through a keyhole, and we each have our own little keyhole. And so we're all seeing a tiny little piece of what's actually going on. And, you know, if we shift our mindset, we shift our lenses, then we get to see different parts of the world. We get to see different things. And that's why, you know, when we make changes to our inner world and to our filters or our lenses that we're perceiving the world through, it seems like the world changes like magic. You know, it really seems like magic, but it's not magic. It's just that like you're looking now at a different part of the world. It was always there, but you were filtering it out or deleting it or distorting it. So I think that's a good place. That's a good place to start around mindset is realizing that we're all living in our own version of reality, and our version of reality is shaped by our experiences, our beliefs, our meta programs, our attitudes, our traumas or lack of traumas or privilege or, you know, culture. All of those things, they shape the world that we see. And, you know, that's being, even if I take it into tech, you know, that's being exacerbated and amplified even more with, you know, having individualized news feeds and AI, AI bots that are feeding us back our own views in this kind of echo chamber. So everybody can be living in these really divergent worlds, and not really understanding what's happening in the other, in other people's perceptions. And then people like, this is my world and it's right, and your world is wrong. And that's, that's a really dangerous frame. And I think that's a lot of where we're at right now in the world. And it's very problematic.
There is so much that you just shared there. Like there's just so much popping off and bubbling for me right now.
Where can we go with this?
like really, really, really beautiful and clear example. And I guess like we never see the world the way that the world is. We only ever see the world the way that we are through that keyhole that you so beautifully put. And like you talk about Facebook and how like that is a really easy to identify example of the self-perpetuation of our own innermost dominating thoughts. And the easiest way to just even just tear a little hole in that is like, don't open Facebook and Instagram for like a week or 2 weeks and notice how you start getting served up different people's, like if you've got 1,000 friends, like when's the last time that you saw posts from all 1,000 friends? Now it's not that they're not posting, it's just that Facebook has picked up like, where are your eyeballs tracking, what piques your interest more, and serves you more of that. Like if I was to get your phone, I'm sure that the ads that you get served, the stories
very different
to mine or to somebody else's. But here's the thing is that we don't question that. Like we don't stop to question like that stuff that's being fed to us, whether that is still actually an interest to us per se.
Exactly.
Or whether we create the interest in it because it's fed to us. The same as like, when do we normally stop to question our beliefs or views of the world? Because we've looked at that keyhole for so goddamn long, we've forgotten that there's another world out there.
There's a whole big world out there outside of your keyhole of it. Yeah.
So how does one start to experience that? Because, like we've been in this space for, I'm not sure about you, like I've been in this space for 18 years. I think you've been there.
Same. Yeah. 16, 17 years. Yeah.
And like, I would say that only just now am I living a life that I really love, and that really nourishes and fulfills me. And it's not required from any external validation. Yeah. But it's taken me years to get here. And I can imagine lots of people watching right now that may be quite new or in their earlier stages of what's this inner game thing? What's this mindset thing we're talking about? Like, how do we start to challenge and question the beliefs that we don't even know our beliefs. We just think are our reality. We just think that they're our life. Yeah. I'm just poor. I'm just not successful. I'm just sharing relationships.
Yeah. It's like, if you think about it like this, if you were as a baby, if you had someone put pink colored contact lenses on your eyes and like surgically attach them when you're a baby, right? You would just grow up thinking that the world had this pink tint to it. And your experience of saying, well, this is what pink is, and someone else's experience of what they think pink is, it's a very different thing, even though you might have the same language for it. Your experience of it is very different than someone else's experience. And that's kind of exactly what, in a very literal and kind of weird example, that's exactly what we're doing. The lenses that we see the world through are the things that we have been shaped by as a child. They're the things that we've been shaped by in our neurology. Even if you think about fetal development, I've done some training in epigenetics and health, how our neurology gets shaped by whether it's your spinal system and you're more tall and lanky, then it's more, you might have more brain development, or if you're more kind of short and stocky, you might have more muscle development, and that changes the way our neurotransmitters fire. And so someone that's more shorter and stocky is more likely to be have a more kind of, maybe like I want to say aggressive, but it's not necessarily aggressive, but like a fiery or passionate way of interrelating with the world, whereas someone that might be more tall and lanky and kind of leaner has that more analytical way of looking at the world, which might be perceived as cold or sometimes heartless, when that's not the case. It's not cold or heartless. It's just a different way looking at the world. So, you know, there's so many different ways that our perception and our relationship with the world and each other is shaped by who we are that we don't even know about. It's sometimes, the more that I peel back the layers, I'm like, wow, it's astounding that we manage to communicate at all. it's just astonishing that we can communicate at all, because there's so much opportunity for divergence and difference and misunderstanding. You know, I was listening to a podcast of Elon Musk talking about, you know, interfacing with computers and, you know, having a matrix style neural link in the brain, and he was just talking about like the data compression between having a thought and then filtering that down and compressing it into symbols that you punch in with your thumb onto a phone to communicate with someone else. The loss, the information loss of your feelings, your thoughts, your frames, your intentions, your mindset into a couple of characters on a keyboard that's then interpreted by someone else's thoughts and feelings and frames. And it's like there's so much data loss and communication loss in that transfer. It's astonishing that we can communicate at all.
Yeah, it's so funny as you shared that. I'm like, it's so true. And then I'm like, well, let's talk about like intuition. Let's talk about energy. Let's talk about heart. Because
let's talk about that.
You know, for me, I remember like 15, 16 years ago when I started my like spiritual journey, I remember that back then, if you told people you were meditating or that you were, you know, into spirituality, they thought you were a dope smoking hippie, and they weren't 100% wrong. I'm going to admit, like back then,
no.
my journey. Now it's like everyone is getting into meditation and recommending it for performance, for you know, relaxation, for grounding, for centering and things like that. But I also think that the human consciousness has shifted so much. Like back then, there was a level of intuition. Now it might just be my filters and the way that I was seeing life back then.
Yeah.
But specifically,
very deliberately. Yes.
Yeah, most people I speak to now are waking up. They're feeling things that they can't necessarily communicate through their thoughts, through emojis, because we've been conditioned to like contextualize or to narrow down those thoughts that we have or those feelings we have into predetermined
symbols.
Emojis. Like, do I feel like I'm winking? Do I feel like I'm this one, or am I smiling? Right? But there's still a limitation of
so much.
that multi-dimension that we do feel through, I think, our heart, not our blood pumping, but like our connection to source, our connection to existence.
Yeah, our connection to the electromagnetic field, and all of the ways that we're connected. I know, and that's I think that's our saving grace in so many more ways than one. And so when I think about words, because you know I'm trained in NLP, and I know you are too, and you know, neuro-linguistic programming. So there's a lot of emphasis within that modality around our linguistics and how our language shapes our world. And where am I going to go with this? I'll backtrack into a tangent. There was a lecture that I listened to a little while, and an incredible lecture series. If you really want to nerd out, there's an incredible lecture series by John Vervecchi on YouTube, and he talks about how language is a psychotechnology. Language, like that having shared communication and words is actually a technology that humans have developed to communicate with themselves through time and communicate with others over space. So language as a shaping force in our brain, you know, if you go back to like pre-language, when we're like grunting at each other and doing symbols and over here, that kind of thing, like really primitive person, you know, language and written language, or even hieroglyphs or whatever, is the first, you know, technology of humans to be able to leverage our thoughts through time and space. And so when I think about language or words, I like to think about them as my metaphor is like they're little boats that contain the frequency of the person and the intention of that person in that moment when they wrote it down. And so it's like, yes, it's a symbol, or it's a script on a rock, or a symbol on a phone. But I like to think of like the word having its own morphogenetic field that contains the frequency or the intention of that person as it's transmitted. And that's where I think, you know, it's kind of getting to your point of feeling the heart of the person, that it's not just, you know, if we go just to the data, it's just a scribble on a piece of paper, or a scribble on a phone, or a smiley face or something. But behind that, or around that, there is this invisible force that contains more information than is explicit or literal. And when you're tuned into that, type of field, then you can receive more information than is just written down on the page or on the phone, and start to feel more of like what the person actually meant, you know? Yeah.
There's something I want to add to that. before I do, welcome to those of you that are joining us live today. Please put your questions and your comments for Kylie and myself below, and we'll get them answered here for you. One thing I guess, like for those that are watching or listening to this today, it's like, how many times have you experienced getting a text message from someone, and it could be a text message that seemed to be pleasant, or that seemed to be nice, but you felt that there was like spikes in it. Like you felt that there was some manipulation,
subtext,
or you felt that there was some subtext going on, right? You felt that like you could send the same message from two different frequencies, and the person receives differently. So that's example kind of one, is that we do, like walking into a room, and it's like you get this feeling of like, oh, something's not right here, or wow, like I feel different from being in this room. Like that is not from a verbal communication, that is from an energetic frequency that you're picking up on. And we've all had experience of that, and that can be developed. That's a higher state of communication than spoken word. And another part of that too, though, is that you've got that aspect. Where was I going with this? Damn.
The morphogenetic field around the words.
So you can feel it, but I guess the point is that, you know, we can also, we can also misread, right, based on our biases. So we can also read something that was written in a clear and beautiful intent, but there's some word or some phrase in there. This is where I was going. There's some word or some phrase in there that triggers off a past bias or a past belief that causes you to react to it based on you looking through the keyhole, which was never the intent, which is why we have to learn to feed all communication through our heart before our head. Boom.
Yes. And I think that, 100%. And, you know, that's, if we're thinking about optimizing life, right? If I've gone kind of super academic and kind of into the real detail of it, but you know, that's just us having a conversation. But if I think, if I come back to practicality, right, of like people, you know, you with your partner, you with your kids, you with your co-workers, you know, we need to communicate every day to other people that we care about, or people that we care less about, but we just need to, by the logistics of life, get along with. And so the more easily we can communicate with people effectively and with heart and with trust and with joy, the more easy our life becomes all the way through our life. You know, imagine if you're talking to a customer service person that needs to fix your internet, for instance, being able to have a heartfelt, you know, collaborative conversation with that person to fix it is going to be much more enjoyable than yelling at the person and getting frustrated and then saying, I can't help you and you need to talk to the next person. And then like all of the biochemistry that goes on in your body when you have an angsty kind of conversation. Or, you know, like right now, social media is a freaking war zone. There is so much going on with like people calling people out and shaming, and, you know, people misunderstanding or reading people's comments through their own biases and through their own projections, and like, oh, you're just a white person and you're just doing this, or, you know, you don't really care, or you're, you know, all lives matter, or black, you know, all of this stuff is like, there's so much like Black Lives Matter, just to be very clear, you know, but there's so much going on. There's so much heightened tension right now in our social media, and it's actually it's shaping our brains in very specific ways. And I think there's, just like you said, when you filter it back through the heart and go, okay, take a deep breath, like take down the tension. You know, how much time have you, you know, I know this has happened to me where I've been in a kind of heated or passionate conversation with someone on text, on social media, and then I go, I need to like get away from this and go do something else. But a part of my mind is still in that conversation. It's like energetically, there's a part of my consciousness that is hooked into that conversation and hooked into social media. So it's not present with me being with my kids. It's not present with me being able to have a conversation with my husband. You know, how many times have you seen those photos of people in bed and everyone's on their phone, or you're out at dinner and everyone's on their phone? It's like, where is the love, you know, people, heartfelt communication? And I think we've been hijacked. Our minds have been hijacked through highly curated and very deliberately created addictive technologies that hook us into this addictive cycle. And it brings us out of the present moment, out of present time, and out of our bodies, where we can actually communicate with each other in a heartfelt way. And that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is, you know, being able to have conversations like this, right? Like through the internet, through social media, there's a lot of good that's being done too, that we can share and have a very low barrier to being able to share uplifting and positive information. And so, you know, you can get hooked into the social media, social justice or battles with other people, or political battles with people, or you can like withdraw your attention from that and turn your keyhole or your lens towards things like this, and consuming and planting in your mind the seeds of positive information and heartfelt information and information that's going to uplift you, which creates a flow and effect of better biochemistry, being more present in your life, being able to make better choices, which then flows on to making better money, you know, having more joy in your life, all of those things. So, you know, there's duality in everything, but I think we really need to be mindful of being hooked into those addictive systems, and very intentionally going, oh, I'm getting drawn into this, and is this actually a productive use of my time? Like really feeling into your heart, going, is this actually productive
to where I want to go? Does this feel good?
Does this feel good? Is it moving me closer to where I want to go? I think we've lost that check as a strategy point, and we're just getting hooked into these loops.
Yes.
You know, like the zombie apocalypse has already happened. We're all the zombies on our phones, hooked into this drama. And the more we can withdraw our attention from that drama and come back into the present moment and the people we care about and doing what feels really good and moves our life forward, I think we'll all be better off for it.
Yeah, I love that. If you're enjoying this, please hit the like button below. Let us know that you're here and that you're enjoying it. I've got a couple of questions. If you are watching, welcome. Please put all your questions.
Welcome.
So one here from Megan. Question for both. I think one hurdle for those interested in meditation is, how different could it be from simple self-examination of one's strengths and weaknesses, or another, simply optimistic thinking? Granted, these are all effective by themselves, but what sets meditation apart? Kylie,
what sets meditation apart? Well, meditation is a, you know, ultimately it's a, oh, someone's trying to call me. There we go. I'm back. Meditation is a.
I just thought you meditated, like, and you just.
I just went. Bing! I just disappeared. I disappeared into the void. So meditation is there's a conscious intention behind meditation that allows us to, you know, the intention is to quiet our mind, or to come back into present moment, or to notice our thoughts without being attached to them. And so there's a very different perspective around concentration or contemplation or meditation. And so when you're talking about like cognitive lists of like benefits or drawbacks, you're using a different part of your brain, because you're concentrating with like your prefrontal cortex to weigh up pros and cons, and it's a very kind of brain or mind heavy perspective of going, these are the pros, these are the cons. Whereas the intention behind meditation is to withdraw your attention from weighing up pros and cons and simply be in the moment, in the body, and detached from the thoughts and feelings like, oh, there's a thought of this might be good, or oh, there's a thought of this might be bad, or there's the pros, there's the cons, and just sitting in the awareness of the consciousness that is thinking those thoughts rather than being in the thoughts and weighing up the thoughts. And I think that's the key difference. And when you start to become aware of, oh, who is the thinker of the thoughts, and sitting in the kind of back of your mind awareness of being the thinker of the thoughts, then you can get less attached to the thoughts themselves. And, you know, I'm not the first person to say that many spiritual teachers and you know, gurus have been saying this for thousands of years. You know, it's not, we're addicted to thoughts, we're addicted to phones and all of that type of thing, but the first addiction is to thought. And so when we can step back from the thought and go, oh, there's a thought passing through my mind, and I'm the being that is timeless and spaceless, and the thoughts are passing through me, then that gives a lot of freedom. That gives a lot of freedom.
Yeah. Nicely put. I guess for me, the way that I see it is that, you know, we have the brain consciousness and our thought consciousness. We have a heart consciousness. And so for me, and there are so many different types of meditations out there. There's meditations, so many mantras, and there's meditations where you just sit there and listen to nothing and do nothing and just be in your own thought. For me, I've you know, studied and been involved with different meditation and spiritual practices for the past 15 plus years. And one that's been a solid grounded foundation is the open heart meditation by a dear friend of mine and my spiritual teacher, Marcia Fende. And the kind of core that I've learned through there is that it's about, I guess, completely surrendering all thoughts, all intentions, all doings, because any part of us that is wanting to intend or to do something is still us doing it. And this is where it's like there is. Let's be honest. We don't have to be too smart to kind of ask the question about what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like think about that for a while. Like where do you get to? Like how can one exist without the other? Like it starts to lead to question. There is something out there other than us. There is there's some form of God, of source, of energy, like whatever it is for you and for your belief. But let's be honest, there's something out there. And so for me, it's around really getting out of my own way and just constantly surrendering to true source, the true source of love, the true source of light, the true source of existence. And noticing when I'm busy and using it as a reminder to touch my heart, to smile at my heart, and to bring myself back into that space of consciousness. And, you know, it's been a long journey, but it's been a short journey. And, you know, for me, the improvement in intuition and divine guidance, and it's not me, like things come through me that there's no way my brain could know or understand. Like I get feelings and notions that now I've just learned to trust after all these years. In the beginning, it was hard because I'll get things. I was like, that doesn't make sense. That
doesn't make sense.
That couldn't work. Like, no, like this makes sense. I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust this. Whereas over the years, it's like I've learned and I've done the time to just trust my heart, even though it might logically not seem like the best. And I've got hundreds and thousands of
so many examples.
I'll rock up to my team and I'll be like, hey, like I'm feeling this. Like reach out to this client. I don't even know the client, and they reach out and they're like, how the hell do you know that? And it's like, they don't even question it now. But I believe that that's the intuition and my connection to source energy, to existence. You know, a far greater experience than like a conscious knowledge that I've had.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's like if I'm to kind of frame that through the lens keyhole thing, it's like, you know, if I'm to give that a perspective, I feel like the intuition and the inner knowing and the inner guidance that comes to you through your heart or through your gut feeling or through those senses that are not the external senses, but the internal senses that, you know, or the extrasensory perceptions, the intuition and the gut feeling and those types of things. It's like that data is coming to you through the, you know, through the intangible or through the invisible. And so you can't see it or feel it, or, you know, I mean, you can feel it, but you can't see it in the same way. Like it's not the same as the lens of the keyhole. It's actually coming to you, almost bypassing some of those lenses and coming into you from outside of what you see in your kind of keyhole world. It's like, oh, my heart knows that there's something over there that's really important, but that I can't see it. Yes. But it's sending it through to my heart to go, hey, this is important. This is important. Pay attention. Like knock, knock, knock on the brain. Hey, Baz, pay attention to this. And I think the more that we can trust our inner guidance or our higher self or our intuition, and the more we get that positive feedback loop of when we trust it, we get positive outcomes or we have these synchronistic experiences, the more that starts to open up. And then it's like, oh, now I have this like extra set of eyes that is looking out for me and is feeding me information that I don't need to even be aware of. I can just trust it and know that it's going to feed me what I need when I need it.
Yeah. Can I add one really important piece to that? Because it's so on point. You made the comment about like when I get the feedback, like I trust my heart and I get the feedback that good things happen. So something along the line, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I'll mention is be careful, especially in the beginning when you start to trust your heart, because often what you immediately get back won't actually be what you want, might not even feel good because we've been trained on immediate gratification. So the brain's like, oh, I go and spend this money and I receive this lolly. I go and spend this money, I receive this car. I go and do this good deed, I get pat on the back. Whereas with the heart, I believe, the heart consciousness is working at a much longer time frame than the narrow focused immediate gratification we've been brought up in and conditioned in. So now every single time that I trusted my heart, like don't get me wrong, like it slapped me down sometimes, or I perceived
100%.
Because I was looking for the treat, I was looking for the reward. But if I look back now, it's like every single time I trusted my heart, even though initially things didn't work, you know,
or it might have been difficult or challenging or breakdowns.
I'm exactly where I need to be right now, and I'm blessed to be here based on that. So that's all I'd say. I notice, particularly when I've coached people or mentored people around this, and you would have found the same. In the beginning, there's often a lot of stuff that's got to break down and undo.
There's a breakdown,
which doesn't seem to feel good on the outside, or doesn't seem to be good. But the more that you trust the heart and the intuition, the more you go down that, the more that you realize that underneath it actually feels divine. You're just having the pain is letting go of all the constructs you've created
100%
around your perception of reality.
100%. I totally agree. It's that. Yeah, I forget that sometimes because I'm a long way in. I'm a long way into the game. But yeah, absolutely. It's like a lot of the times your heart will give you guidance that doesn't feel good, or it feels like it's going to disrupt your world or break down things or constructs that you've created for yourself. And it's realizing, I think, that trusting the long game, like you said, not just the instant gratification, but if my heart is guiding me to something, then there's a part there that needs to be listened to. And that's like, how is this affecting my long-term integrity, my long-term, you know, overarching joy? You know, it might make sense to stay in a job that pays me really well, and my heart saying, get out, start your own business or go travel to India or whatever it is.
With no guidance.
With no guidance. And it makes no sense. And it's like, what, you want me to give up my job that's paying really well and you know, go and do this thing? That feels scary and terrifying. I'm not going to do that. You've got to be kidding me. And so then, you know, you ignore that voice, and then eventually something happens. Maybe you lose your job, or maybe you have a divorce, or maybe, you know, something. It's like the longer you ignore that intuition and then you ignore those intuitive knocks, the more the universe will shape itself. It's like having a rattle in your machine. Right? Like when you're out of alignment, then there's a rattle in your machine, and you can hear it as a little rattle and go, oh, I need to go tighten that screw and fix that up and grease that thing. But if you ignore it and go, oh no, it's just a little rattle, it's like, it doesn't matter that it's out of alignment. I'm just going to rationalize, this is okay. I'm making money. I've got a good job. I've got a white picket fence, you know, whatever. And you ignore it, and the rattle gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it shakes the whole house down.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, like, unfortunately, and my heart goes out to anyone who's going through this right now, a lot of people are in that situation now where their house is shaking and falling down, and it's fucking heartbreaking. And I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but it's heartbreaking, and it's devastating, and it feels like your world is falling apart when that happens. And the seed that is inside that is to, you know, to come back to your heart. And after that breakdown, there 100% always is a breakthrough, and there always is guidance, and there always is support. And, you know, even though through the toughest times, when those things break down, there's something new on the other side of that. And I've always found that to be true, even through the most horrendous situations that I've coached people through, you know, always.
Absolutely. And that's where I feel that we do get that little bit of a nudge if we haven't been listened, because you know, there's a different way of being. Last question here. We got a question from, we got time for one more. Keith from Melbourne. How is Kylie's experience helping business owners cope with the impact of the pandemic?
Oh my good. Thanks, Keith. That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of work with kind of high level business coaches and entrepreneurs, and helping them personally to stay to help their nervous system stay calm, and for them to make clear choices out of peace, and out of, you know, connection with that heartfelt sense of like making good choices for the long term.
Yeah.
And then also helping people, like I've done a lot of trainings recently with either their staff or just, you know, general trainings in the community to help people to shift from, you know, using a basic model from Stephen Covey that I learned from a reactive locus of control into a proactive locus of control. And it's like, where do we put our attention? And I think there's a lot of different ways that we can do this, but the core thing when we're dealing with situations where everything seems to be either breaking down or changing, or we don't have control over our situation, it can be very easy to put our attention on all the things that we can't control and feel really powerless. And then you feel powerless, and you get into a disempowered state, and you're more likely to then overeat or watch too much TV or make poor choices because you're feeling powerless. And my, you know, guidance or advice in this situation is to help yourself to come back to focusing on the things that you can control. And there's 4 things that you can control regardless of any situation that you might find yourself in. And that's your thoughts, your feelings, your speech, and your behavior. They're your 4 powers, and no one can ever take them away from you. And when you remember that you can always control or guide, or, you know, notice what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and being aware of that, that's your inner powers. And you always have those inner powers, and you always have connection to the thinker beyond the thoughts, you know, the awareness or the source that is beyond those thoughts. And the more you can really hone in on your inner powers, and then the next layer is your outer powers, your speech and your behavior, the things that you choose to say and do that interact then with the outside world. And the more we can bring our power back into ourselves and realize that we always have control, even in the most dire situation, you know, like reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, one of, you know, all-time bestseller books about his harrowing experience through World War II and being persecuted and being in concentration camps, like horrendous situation, and being able to, you know, his guidance was about being able to keep his thoughts focused on the future and how he was going to get out of it, and be teaching about it in the future. So we can use our mind even sometimes to hallucinate a better future, or to architect a better future, even when we're in challenging situations, and that can give us strength. And so that's my work has been around helping people in that way. Yeah.
Love that, Carls. Love that. For anyone that's watching this today that might want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way to find you?
The best way to find me is at mymindcoach.com.au, my mind coach. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook on the same name, My Mind Coach. If you're a coach or you're a leader and you want to work with people and learn some more about how to be a better coach, then I have a free Facebook group called the Super Coach Society that I help coaches become better coaches at handling this inner world and outer world piece. And that's it.
Love that. Last question.
Yeah.
If you had a conversation with a 10-year-old version of you, knowing all that you know now, having been through what you've been through, what would you say to her? What advice would you give her?
Oh, what advice would I give her? Wow. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you know. Trust your heart. Enjoy your life. Trust your guidance. It's like there's nothing that I would change about my life. I've had some radical ups and downs, but there's nothing that I would change about my life. I think it's about trusting yourself. I love you, and you're worthy of love, and you're worthy of being loved, and enjoy your life. You deserve to live a great life.
Beautiful.
And that's to everyone's 10-year-old self, right? To everyone's 10-year-old self. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yay.
And look, if you're watching and you are an entrepreneur and business owner and you're wanting to build a profitable business that can work without you, not just have the systems and the structure and the strategy and the team, but really dive into the mindset and the shifts that we must make in our identity to actually have that experience.
So good.
Please grab a copy of my book, The Path to Freedom, The 9 Steps to Create a Profitable Business That Works Without You. We dive into here in chapter 13, I think it is. We dive into all things your mindset related through to entrepreneurship, where we deep dive. But every single chapter, anytime that I'm sharing anything, I'm addressing the fundamental beliefs and shifts that we have to make inside of us to have the experience outside of us. Out of hundreds and thousands of business owners I worked with, the one thing that stops them from creating a life of their dreams and a life that they love is their inner game. It's not any lack of
100%.
connection to strategies or tactics or being able to find the right team members. It all is a game. And that's where it starts. Marry up in this is the strategy, the tactics, the outer game, and the most important part, being in the game. So we'll put a link below. You've got to the 3rd of August to get access to the bonuses. Love your support.
So amazing. Your book is so amazing, Baz. This is such a great gift to the world and such a great impact, because there's so many business people and business coaches out there that are just focusing on the strategies and the tactics and the practical pieces, and that's really important. But if you don't have the mindset right and the identity pieces right, then it doesn't matter how good the strategy is if your mindset and your identity is not aligned with that. Yeah. So, such important work you're doing. Yay.
Thank you everyone for joining in today, Kylie. Thank you so much for your friendship, your love, your support. So grateful for the impact you've had on my life and the journey we've taken together as well. Thank you everyone for joining in today, live and on the replay, wherever you are. So much love.
Lots of love.